I hope you're enjoying Virtual Splash of Pink. I would normally be running the cake store with my friends, and it involves an awful lot of baking. And I do regularly get messages and emails asking questions about baking and things that have gone wrong. So I thought it'd be useful just to do a little video of some of the most common questions that I get asked. My learning has been through trial and error. If could go wrong in a way, I've done it. Underbaked, overbaked, wombling free. So I have been that, and I know how disappointing it is when you've put time, love and money into making something and it's gone wrong. So hopefully a few tips will help you to avoid disaster, and should minor cake disasters strike, there are things that you can do to rescue it, let's say. So one question I've been asked recently was why is it suggested that you use a metal spoon when you're folding in flour? Now there's a bit of science behind it. You've got two opportunities really when you make a cake to get air into it and to get the lift. So the first one is when you're beating the butter and the sugar together, assuming it's not an all-in-one recipe. I must admit, even on all-in-one recipes, I do tend to separate it out just to make sure that I get as much lift as possible. So yeah, when you beat the flour, when you beat the butter and the caster sugar in together, it's generally caster, you want it to go really nice and pale and fluffy, and that's when you can tell there's lots of air in it. Then you'll generally sift in the flour after you've added the egg, and I normally put a tablespoon of flour in when I put the eggs in. It stops them splitting. But when you actually put the flour in, you fold the flour in. Now the reason they suggest a metal spoon is because you've got bubbles of air in there, and a wooden spoon has got quite a wide edge, whereas a metal spoon, thin edge, so literally you're just popping less bubbles as you go through the mixture. So yeah, that's why they suggest a metal spoon. I always thought for years, oh no, is it something to do with the fact that it's metal, and but no, it's just literally the thinness of the edge. The next thing I would say probably is the most common problem is when a cake sinks in the middle. Now you should never open the door until it's at least 3/4 of the way through the baking time. I know it can be tempting, I know it looks like it's going really well, but that will make a cake sink if you open it before then. My oven's got a hot spot in one place, so I need to turn a cake, so I always wait for 2/3 of the cooking time at least to be through, and then you just need to open the door as little as you can without burning yourself and turn it quickly, because you don't want cold air to rush into the oven. Close the door again and let it bake for the rest of the time. And when it is baked, there are generally 3 ways that you can tell if a cake is baked, especially a sponge cake. It will tend to shrink away from the sides of the tin, so that's the first way. The second way is if you press it gently with your finger in the middle, it'll bounce back. And the third way, if you're not sure, is to stick a skewer or a toothpick into it and pull it out and just see if that's come away clean. So touch it with your fingers, is there any wet mixture on there? If you're doing something with chocolate chips in, yeah, just be mindful if you get a blob of chocolate, then that's probably how it should be. It's the actual cake mixture that you're looking for. And if you have accidentally overcooked something, you can quite often it's only the edges, and you can cut them off, and you can buttercream it all over so nobody sees that you've cut the edges off. Buttercream is fantastic for hiding a multitude of sins. and it is something that I rely on regularly. If you've really seriously undercooked it, especially if it's a cake where you're using egg, you should really get rid of that, because it's generally the middle. You should really get rid of that middle bit. So I would put something round over which will cover the bit that's undercooked, and then cut that out and then decorate it so it looks like that was deliberate. Most people will never know, and they'll just think it's a really nice design. Decorating can be an issue as well. I must admit, my cakes, I don't tend to do a lot of really fancy decoration on them. There are some easy fixes, like I say, buttercream is fabulous, and if you've got a good piping nozzle, you can make some nice patterns on it. A strawberry half dipped in chocolate and then left to set will always look fantastic on top of a cake, and it's easy to do. The other thing that I find looks good, bit of icing sugar, or depending on the cake, maybe that could be a bit of cocoa powder dusted over the top using a sieve or a tea strainer. I generally use a tea strainer. And drizzles across stuff always look nice, and you can combine a drizzle with a bit of icing sugar. Now, to drizzle, I find one of the easiest ways is to use a disposable piping bag. So these are completely sealed, and then I'd put some chocolate into the piping bag, and then just rest that into a cup of hot water, and the chocolate will melt, and then all you need to do is just cut off the end of the piping bag, and then you can push it out a little bit more. You tend to get a bit more of an even drizzle on that, or if you want something that's a bit more splodgy, you can make that happen as well just by pushing on the piping bag. So yeah, that's something that I do regularly. As I say, buttercream is a saviour in many ways. Personally, I can find it a little bit sickly and a little bit sweet. So quite often, if I'm doing a cake for adults, I will put a tablespoon or two maybe of a liqueur into it, and it tends to cut that sweetness a little bit. Something like Chambord black raspberry liqueur is gorgeous, toffee vodka, those types of things. Something with a flavour, certainly a flavour that will complement the cake that you're making, can just elevate that buttercream and really cut through that sweetness. If you over bake something and it's really dry, you can also use liqueurs, or just make a simple sugar syrup and spoon that over the cake, and that will rescue that no problem at all. So those are a few of the things that I do, and if you do have any questions, you can message me, and I will be more than happy to get back to you if it is within my cake knowledge. I hope you enjoy the rest of Splash of Pink, and if you would like to donate, you can by texting Splash of Pink to 70085. If you don't want to hear from Against Breast Cancer, you can text Splash of Pink no info, and that's all one word, no gaps, to the same number, 70085. Thank you.